Welcome to the Startup Grind.
I'd like to turn it over to Ricky, who is the Managing Director over at Tech Wildcatters.
Thank you, Joe. So who in the audience has been to a Startup Grind here before? Sounds good. We hope all of you enjoy today and come back. How are you enjoying Startup Week so far? Already at day 3, midway through Startup Week. There's a State of Entrepreneurship tonight, so it's going to be a good one. The Startup Grind is the largest independent startup community in the world that we actively educate, inspire, and connect entrepreneurs. So we have over 1 million entrepreneurs that came to one of our events, fireside chats, in over 365 cities across the world. We have a global sponsor, Google for Entrepreneurs. I'd like to thank them. Startup Grind Dallas is actually one of the oldest original chapters. The Startup Grind, there were 4 chapters before us, and Lee Blaylock, who's currently CEO of Find Again. He's the chapter director of Startup Grind Dallas. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it here today, and I'm the co-director, so I have the pleasure or the honor to fill in and interview Josh today. But yeah, we're proud to be part of the Dallas Startup community, part of Dallas Startup Week, and help connect and bring entrepreneurs to come out, network, meet new friends, learn something new, and if you have something to ask, and somebody might have an answer, or if you have something that you can offer to the community that you want to help. And we'll have a session towards the end, and we call it the 10-second gong, that we'll let anybody who wants to introduce themselves stand up, tell us what your name is. Don't tell about your company. We're not interested in that. Just tell us what do you have to offer, or what do you have to ask from the community. So we'll do that towards the very end. But the format today will be an informal fireside chat with Joshua Baer here. We'll go over what inspired him to become an entrepreneur and the pathways along when he started until where he is today, and what he has looking forward. But before that, I'd like to thank our local sponsors, Silicon Valley Bank, who sponsored Startup Grind Dallas all from day one when we started in 2012, proud sponsor. And I'd like to thank our partners, WeWork, that let us use the venue. We're Tech Wildcatters, we're based here at WeWork as well, and we really enjoyed the experience here. And then they also provided food here, so thank WeWork for that. So with that, I'm going to start with an intro to Joshua Baer. I'm sure most of us know Josh pretty well, but just to keep the format in mind, I'll go over. So Josh helps people quit their jobs and become entrepreneurs. And Josh can say it a lot better than I do, but I'll kind of that. He's the founder of Capital Factory, a co-working community and mentorship-based accelerator designed to help startups find their first investors, customers, and employees. According to PitchBook, Capital Factory has been the most active investor in Texas since 2013, and we all know how big Texas is, so that's a big thing. Josh founded his first startup in 1996 in his college dormitory at Carnegie Mellon University. So I know a little bit about Carnegie Mellon because I went there for grad school. So.
Go Tartans.
Go Tartans. And Josh also teaches a class at the University of Texas for student entrepreneurs. So we want this session to be interactive, so I'm going to kick off with some questions, but I also want the audience to, hey, if you have some topic, anything that you want to learn from Josh, want to hear about any insights, feel free to raise your hands, and we will incorporate that in, and then we'll have a Q&A towards the end. So we know that you started your first company at Carnegie Mellon, but before that, what inspired you as a child growing up? Did you have a path that, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur? Did you have other sides in mind? What brought you to that path before going to CMU?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Ricky. I'm really glad to be here. I'm super glad to be part of Startup Week in Dallas. This is awesome. This is my first Dallas Startup Week. I actually helped launch the Austin Startup Week. I've been organizing that for a number of years. But it's really cool to be part of this up here, and just came here from the Centrum, where we're going to be opening up our Capital Factory Dallas location with the deck next month. So it was really exciting to see them. They're all like putting walls up and building things, and I'm really excited to be becoming part of this community. So thanks for having me here.
Well, welcome. We need more to help build a stronger startup community here in Dallas and the whole Texas.
So, specifically as to kind of getting started around entrepreneurship, it's funny, I do not believe that entrepreneurship is like hereditary or anything. I don't think it's, I think anybody can be an entrepreneur, and all kinds of different people can be entrepreneurs in different ways. But when I look back at my family, I see entrepreneurs everywhere. No, none of them went and built some huge company, but they all were very entrepreneurial and worked for themselves in either directly or in different ways. My grandparents, both on both sides, ran kind of small retail stores, and so just kind of, American small businesses, but kind of grew up working for themselves. And my parents grew up in those stores, and they were kind of family-owned businesses that at different times got passed down to different parts of the family. And then my father is a photographer, but he was an independent photographer. He ran his own small business, going and shooting weddings and bar mitzvahs and commercial photography and things like that, and ran it out of our basement of our house. And so he had his studio in our basement, and he was always around, but he was always working. There was always like stuff to do. And so a lot of my memories growing up were being down there in the studio with him, or in the dark room, or wherever it was, and maybe he was like a lot of times like putting albums together, like putting the pictures into the albums. They probably don't have to do that anymore. They probably just like print them on the album. But I just remember it's like two of us watching some TV show or movie and him putting albums together and talking about business. And then my mother was a school teacher, but she helped my father with the photography business, where she sold like wedding stationery, like the invitations that would go alongside it. So that was like her little business next to it. And so as I look around my family, again, none of them created necessarily the kinds of businesses that I'm focused on now, but I do see entrepreneurs all over the place through that. And the biggest thing for me that I felt like that did for my entrepreneurial career, my journey, was just making it seem accessible and possible. Whereas I talk to so many people who look at entrepreneurship as something that's very intimidating and something that's scary. And someone that I was just speaking to earlier today at this, as we were waiting to get this started, was asking me, like, when's the right time to start my project, to start my company, to start my nonprofit? And it's a scary thing. And I think having that around me just made it seem accessible, made it seem possible, made it seem like, okay, I know people that have done that, like I can do something like that.
So why Carnegie Mellon, why computer science? Back at those days in the 90s, at the internet, it's getting started, it's not as big as today. What inspired you that this is the path that you want to specialize in?
Yeah, so I was always really into computers. I grew up in, I think of myself as growing up in the 90s. That's when I was going to high school, and my first computer was like a Apple II C++, and then pretty quickly a Mac, and that was pretty awesome. And before there was the internet, there was America Online, and just being able to just even get on FTP sites and find stuff. There wasn't even the web yet. But being able to go out and feeling like you could connect to the world and find all kinds of different people was really exciting. And I could tell that, not that I knew anything about business or anything else, but I knew that computers were going to change everything, and that they were going to touch every different industry and every different business. And so, growing up in the 90s, what do your parents want you to be? And like one generation, maybe they all want you to be a doctor, and another one they want you to be lawyers. We were lawyers. That was the 90s. Was like it was cool to be a lawyer, and I felt like that was the go to law school, like something like that. But to me, I was like totally drawn to computers and technology, and I'm really opportunistic. Luck is when opportunity meets preparation, right? And so, but part of that's like putting yourself in a position where when something happens, you can take advantage of it, and then part of that is recognizing that and jumping on it, and then through activity, I think activity creates opportunity. Like doing things creates luck, and so you can just sit around, nothing's going to happen. But if you go do lots of stuff and interact with lots of people, you get opportunities. And so in this case for me, I went and did a summer program at Carnegie Mellon. It was while I was in high school, which on the one hand was like going to school during the summer, because I took like AP calculus and physics or whatever that were college level courses. But on the other hand, it was like living at college for the summer, which was like kind of awesome when you were 16 or 17. So that meant like you were away, not with your parents, and living in a dorm with a whole bunch of college kids, and that was really fun. So that was my exposure to CMU. I got accepted into that program. All I really knew about CMU at the time was that it was the #1 school for computer science, and that was really all I needed to know. I was like, all right, well, I got into that. Like, let's just go do that. I don't fill out any more applications. And so I did the summer program there. That kind of queued me up to, when I applied to that and Rice for early admission for college, and got into CMU and was like, great, no more college applications. I'm already kind of familiar with it, but and that turned out to be a great move. CMU was a great place. There's amazing people there doing incredible things. I don't know, Ricky also went to CMU. And my experience there is everybody at CMU has some chip on their shoulder that didn't get into MIT. And so they all work their ass off. Like, everybody's got something to prove, like in a good way. Like, they all there's a lot of hustle there. And I really enjoyed that. And then feel so fortunate now coming to, I live in Austin and I teach at the University of Texas at Austin in the computer science department. And it was just recently ranked #1 computer science school in the country. So I'm not going to claim any credit for either of those things, but I've definitely got 2 really good computer science schools that I'm plugged into through that.
I agree. I think it's a great school, great environment. It's a smaller school environment in Pittsburgh. It tends to get a little bit cold with the winters, but that just means it's an excuse for us to study harder. Speaking of studying hard, the curriculum there is very rigorous. How do you manage the study, the work, starting your own company there, and at the time, are you looking at getting a job or anything at all? Because when you go to school, many students are, how do I get a summer internship somewhere? Is that going to lead to a career, or that point of view on it, that starting a business with together?
Yeah, so I have this memory of the first week of school during fraternity rush, sitting on the wall of one of the fraternities on Norwood Avenue, and speaking with someone who would become one of my lifelong really good friends in the fraternity I was joining, and him saying to me, hey, so what are you going to do after college? Why do you, this is the first week of school. It's like, what do you want to do? Why are you here? And he reminded me of this a couple years later, though, and I was like, well, I don't really know exactly what I do, but I think I want to start my own company. Like, I think I want to work for myself. I don't think I want to go get a job. And so I did have that mindset. There was nothing specific about it other than I think I can and I want to go work for myself. And my freshman year of college was 1994. That was the year that Netscape came out, which was like the first web browser. It was a huge deal that my dorm rooms had Ethernet plugs in them. There was no Wi-Fi yet, but but not having a dial-up, having to be able to just be on the internet all the time was massive. That was a huge thing.
Okay, it's Carnegie Mellon. We pretty much invented the internet.
Okay, there you go. Well, yeah, lots of inventors of the internet, but yes, totally. And so that was super cool. It was being able to access that. And it was also a time, and I actually don't think this is really any different today. There's just a lot more to learn, and there's more layers. But back then especially, nobody knew anything about the internet. It had just been invented. There was nobody that had been with rare exception, there was really nobody that had been doing the internet for 10 years or 20 years. Everybody was figuring it out. So anything you wanted to know, you could go read about it for a month or two, and you're a world expert. And so that's why I started going and learning about stuff and trying things. And this is going to the story of how the first company started, but probably a good segue. And so at the time, I couldn't get software either because software cost money back then, programs you wanted to run, and there was not everything for free on the internet. And also, right now, you have this expectation that beta software is all free. That's also a new concept. Netscape was the first open beta that was free for anybody to go try and download. That was a big deal. And so I wanted to run websites and run different things on my computer, but I couldn't afford the software to buy it. So the only way to get it was to go apply for these beta programs. And you had to fill out an application and sign an NDA and all these other things. And they really just wanted to let you in the beta program if you were going to buy the software someday. So I really was not going to buy the software someday. So unless I completely lied about who I was, generally I was not getting accepted to any of these things. And I was running a Mac, and if you wanted to run a website on the Mac, you needed to run the web server on your Mac. That was called WebStar. And I really wanted to get WebStar, so I signed up for the big data program. For WebStar, it probably cost $600. And at the time I was signing up for it, there was another form right next to it for this other program called ListStar. I had no idea what ListStar was, but it was the same form, so I just like copied and pasted all my answers and filled out the same thing. I'll take that one too. Everybody wanted the web server. Everybody was applying for WebStar, so I got rejected from that. But I think just like not that many people signed up for the ListStar one, and so they let me into it. And so it was an email server, and I get this package in the mail that's like the software, and I don't even know what it is, but so I like go read the manual and like install it and set it up. And it turns out it's a thing to run email servers. And through that, that's kind of what got me into email and started to use that. I ended up working for that company, and then eventually my first company was more later, was a hosting company for email sites, email servers.
Yeah, so it's opportunistic, and you also a lot of times people describe it as the accidental entrepreneur. So
Yeah.
just take what life throws at you and be creative and make the most out of it. What's your advice for students who, when they're in school, they onto something, they found a company? Should they still finish school? Is it case by case? Like, what's your advice for it?
That's a great question. I definitely think every situation is different, every person's different, every person has different goals and gets different things out of school. And I think school is changing a lot. I think it's going to keep changing a lot. My oldest daughter is 9, and I don't know what her college is going to be like, or if she needs to go to college. So I think that's a hard question that's going to keep changing. For me, I started my company my sophomore year. I did not go to very much class. I'm not suggesting people should or shouldn't, but like I really quickly became focused on my company and really just kind of did the minimal things I needed to do because I wanted to graduate. I ended up taking 5 years to graduate with a double major, but a lot of that was really just because I was working on my company a lot through that, and I did get very good grades. But I really felt like I tried to cherry pick out the classes and the things that were really helpful to me and focus on those. I think for a lot of other people, things could happen a lot faster if they did drop out. Because my business didn't really start to grow until I got out of school and started working on it full time. And on the one hand, I was a really naive young CEO, and I was making tons of terrible mistakes and wasting lots of time and money and relationships through learning about all that. So on the one hand, maybe if I had dropped out of school, I just would have crashed and burned. But maybe it would have gone a lot. Maybe it would have gone faster. Maybe I would have learned more faster.
It's like one of those things with hindsight, you never know which path worked well for some people, and some people like you don't know what.
And I just do think that it's a degree is not the same thing it used to be. And when I'm hiring somebody, I don't look at their degree these days usually. I look at like what they've done and what they're capable of doing. And it's not nearly as important to me. I think there are some jobs where it is. And I think that it's also like, it's a little bit of like, how committed you are to this path. Like, I was pretty sure by the time I graduated that I was never going to apply for a job. Like, I was never going to be in that situation. And so that wasn't as important by the end of it to me, and other people, going to go through different paths and their careers are going to change, over the course of the years, and it may or may not be more important.
So that's how your first company got started. At what point did you decide that this is how far I want to grow it? At what point did you decide that, hey, probably it's time to let somebody else buy it? And there's that. And the other aspect is also, when did you decide that, hey, you want to move to Texas, you want to come to Austin? Kind of went together.
Sure. So I came to Texas right when I graduated. I graduated in 1999, which was the peak of the first .com boom. It was crazy. Like, they described, the word at the time was irrational exuberance. That's how they described the bubble. So you could probably say that about Bitcoin a year ago. But it was this time where, the stock market was booming and internet stocks were crazy and crazy ideas were getting funded and people were throwing around money everywhere. And I was graduating, and I had this small company that was, I think at the time it was probably doing $500,000 or $600,000 a year in revenue. As a college student, I thought that was fucking awesome. Like, I thought that was like the coolest college kid around as far as business goes. But now, as looking back as a business, I realized that was really just the beginnings of a scalable business. And there was a company in Austin called Trilogy Software, started by Joe Lemont, and they were running a big incubator to launch companies. And they were specifically recruiting entrepreneurs and engineers from Carnegie Mellon, MIT, and Stanford to go be in this incubator. And I had some friends that had graduated the semester before me, and they had gone down and been part of it, and they convinced me that that was a really great opportunity for me to learn a lot and to meet a lot of other great people and learn from other great people. And at the end of it, actually, Joe, the CEO of Trilogy, was like, hey, well, if you already have this company and you've been running it on the side where you're in school, you can just keep running it on the side. And I was like, well, that's kind of a win-win situation. Like, I don't have to give up the company I have. I'm going to come there and they're going to pay me a lot of money and expose me to all these, great other people that I'm going to learn from. And so that was actually what brought me down to Austin. And so I graduated, moved down, took a job, brought two of my friends from CMU down with me, who then ran my company during the day, and I would come back at the end of the, kind of like the end of the day and sync up with them and kind of push that forward. And that's kind of brought me down to Austin. I had a great year at Trilogy. It was like the best possible 1 year time you could be there. It was like when everything was going crazy and they were spending lots of money, and I got to launch a company in 3 months and spend like a couple $1 million launching it. And then we did a bunch of business development where I closed some big deals and learned a lot from that. And then we ended up selling the company about a year later, right as the market was starting to crash. And so that was a great experience for me. It brought me down to Austin. It plugged me into this network, the Trilogy Network, which is a great network of people who I still work with and invest with and do a lot of the things with today. And got me down to Austin. And then at the end of that, it was in the summer 2000, everybody now knew the market was crashing. Trilogy wasn't putting all this money into the incubator anymore. And now I was in Austin, but it was kind of a natural time to just go back and focus on my business. So I stopped working at Trilogy, and actually for the first time ever, even though it was 5 years into me working with my company, it was the first time that I was actually working on it full time and focused on it. And that was definitely an inflection point where boom, it started to grow. There was another convenient thing that about 5 other of my friends from Carnegie Mellon were graduating at that time, and they all thought they had jobs, but then because of the market crash, their jobs went away. And so I was able to pull like a bunch of really talented, great people down to come work for me that I probably never would have been able to afford a year before that. And so that really got the business growing and growing in Austin. And we ran that then for about another 5 years or so. As much as that was a time that technically was a market crash, where you'd think it'd be hard to be growing your business, that was an email marketing business. And like all online marketing, my view of, or my experience of it at that time is, even though the overall markets were really hurting, online marketing actually grew and did very well during the early 2000s because it was just coming to an age and it's measurable. And so all these budgets were constrained because of the market crash, and the easiest thing that they could spend money on were things that they could measure, and online marketing is really measurable. And so we really saw marketing boom and start to grow. We had to deal with spam and figuring out what that was and how to police our customers and how to manage all that. But that's really where the business started to grow. And then about 5 years later, in I think around 2005, one of my biggest customers raised a whole bunch of money. And so then they were in a position to go be acquisitive, and they saw us as a really key strategic part of their business. And so they offered to buy the company from me. And we were doing a couple $1 million in revenue at the time. So again, honestly, now looking back from the companies that I've worked with now, we were actually right at the point where we could have gone and raised like a real Series A. Like gone and raised $5 or $10 million to go really scale that business and make it into a big business. I probably wasn't the right person to do that at the time. Certainly didn't have as much experience, or really I didn't understand what that was or if that was possible. I didn't even know it was possible. I couldn't imagine that somebody would give me $5 million or $10 million. And I've been doing it for almost 10 years, and I was kind of done. I was like, I've been doing it for a long time. I was ready to like check that box and like put that behind me and say like, cool, I did that, like accomplishment, like move to the next thing. And I really had this sense that that's what would happen. That like, and I think that's like the unique thing about the United States that's really great is like, you can build on that kind of success, and when you have one success, you can go and use that, leverage that to go do more things. And I was definitely able to do that. But then once I had sold it now, even if it wasn't a huge win, like it was a win, and then I had money to go invest in myself and stuff, and other people were much more willing to invest in me to go. I started more businesses since then. And so for me, it was definitely, I think, the right move to sell it and move on. But I also realized in hindsight, like, I really only built it up to the point where it was really about to start to get real and really start to grow.
It's also that you identify that you're the right person to build up to a certain point, and then if you were to take on, who knows which way it's going to go, or have to find a professional CEO, and some of those things that you have to say, like, what's best for you at the time and make decisions for it. So after your first company, you started your second company, now with all the knowledge, with all the arsenal, all the contacts, investors, and mentors that you surround yourself with. How did you feel that the experience was a lot different the second time around, or even the third time around?
Yeah. So my second company, actually, I spun out of my first company before I had sold them, and that immediately caused me to make a third company, which, we were talking actually on the panel yesterday. Tahir was talking about the studio model. And actually, before I had Capital Factory, I have a studio called Capital Thought, which I don't talk about as much because we're really focused on Capital Factory right now. But I created Capital Thought because as I was spinning out the second company, I suddenly realized that my second company was stealing from my first company, even though I owned both of them. But if I'd had other shareholders, like, they wouldn't have been happy about that, because they would have been like, hey, like, you're taking resources from one to help the other. And it was mostly programmers. And so I was like, I really need a third company that's just the programmers, and I'll rent them out to each of my other two companies. And that was really kind of the beginning of the studio, where it had built one company, and then I built another company. And that was called Unso Central. And then at the time, I was friends with Brett Hurt, who was the founder of, at the time, Coremetrics, and he was starting a new company called Bazaar Voice. And he had seen me really quickly launch this second company, and he was getting ready to go raise money, and he had this idea, and a very small team formed, didn't have a development team. And so then he was like, hey, why don't you build the first version of my product, and I'll give you equity, and pay a little bit for it, and then I'll build the team and eventually take it over. And so that was the third project that we built, was Bazaar Voice. Bazaar Voice ended up raising a lot of money and going public. And so that was a great experience to kind of be part of. And that was the third company. And then I sold Skyless and Unso Central, and at that point, really all the people that were part of it went with it. So Capital Thought still existed, but it didn't have any people. That's like the cycle of what I find is hard about the studio model. The studio model is basically having like your own team that builds multiple companies for you. And what's really hard for that, from what I found at scale, is like, as soon as we had something interesting, it would consume the whole team. Like, you put everybody on the thing that's working.
Right, so like success could hurt you.
Yeah, so then you have to so it takes years to go start over. But since then, Capital Thought also then launched WP Engine, which is one of the most successful companies that Capital Factory's invested in and worked with, and WP Engine just raised $250 million in January, which was like a great outcome for them. That was an exit for most of the original investors, and that's been a really great thing to be part of. And then it also started a company called Pingboard, which is still going right now. They just raised a Series A little while ago. And so that was kind of the series of getting the first companies going. So then, after selling Skyless and Unso Central, it was kind of like a clean slate. It was like, I had a whole bunch of money in the bank, and I didn't have any job I had to go do. And it was like, okay, what do I go start? And so the next company was Other Inbox. And my first two companies, Unso Central and Skyless, were really about helping companies to send their email marketing. And through that, we learned a lot about the problems with email marketing and about spam and how it really works and what really causes people to get email they don't want, which I believe is primarily actually around data sharing, privacy, like when you sign up for something, that email address gets shared with other things that people don't really understand. And so Other Inbox was created to help consumers deal with all the stuff that all those big companies send. And it was really different because it was a consumer play as opposed to B2B. It was not, I bootstrapped my first businesses, and so I went and I raised angel funding because I could, because now I had sold a business before and I knew people and they would invest in me and give me money.
It's a lot easier to raise angel funding when
for sure.
You have a reputation.
Yeah, and then I made a ton of mistakes. Honestly, like I was really cocky. I thought I was, that I built this company and been successful, and so a little bit of feeling like I could lose, and I really didn't know anything about raising money or what can happen through that, and it worked out okay in the end. but it definitely was, you know, a rough.
Investors throw money at you, feel money comes easy, and you start to spend too fast, and then you realize that I could have done differently with venture money.
Yeah.
So, at what point did you decide that it's your mission you want to encourage to be entrepreneurs to quit their jobs and start their own businesses?
You know, that was really around Capital Factory, you know, and launching Capital Factory. And at the time, I'd already been a pretty active angel investor and was investing in people I'd met at Carnegie Mellon and people I'd met through Trilogy and kind of through the extended network through that. And, you know, I've never been an angel investor. I don't invest thinking like, oh, I'm going to get rich off this company. Like, I invest thinking like, oh my God, that company's so cool. Like, I want to be involved with it. I want to be part of it. I want to be connected to it. And so for me, that's really what it was about. And I realized that as in, you know, as like how I, you know, started is after a lot of things in your kind of beginnings of your career happen, again, somewhat opportunistically, like we talked about. You don't necessarily know what you want or what your plan is. And another thing happens after you sell some companies, you start thinking, well, you have a little more time to think about, like, well, why am I here? What's my legacy? What am I going to do? What, you know, what's the value I'm bringing to the world? And I remember in college, a friend of mine was a campus EMT, like he was like, you know, was a campus ambulance, you know, runner basically. And a lot of that on campus was dealing with like people who drank too much, but then there's also, you know, the really serious things that happen. And I remember thinking like, oh, that's so cool, like I want to go do that. Like imagine like every day you go and you like help people and you're like, what did you do today? Oh, that guy saved somebody's life, you know. That sounded like a pretty meaningful, you know, day to have. But I fainted sight of blood. I like totally like am terrible with anything like medical or like anything like that. And so I realized that wasn't going to work for me. And so, and honestly, it's kind of, in some ways like kind of coming out of that, like I was like, okay, what can I really do that makes a difference? And I actually really believe that entrepreneurs do change the world, and they really are, you know, they're not the solution to every problem that we have, but a lot of the problems that we have are going to be solved by entrepreneurs, and are going to be solved through technology and through entrepreneurship. And helping someone become an entrepreneur is empowering them. It like puts them in a position to make decisions and to make things happen and to kind of set their own future and not just kind of you know, to not sort of fit into a box. And that's super exciting to me. That feels meaningful and valuable. And the people that I've been able to back, I feel like every entrepreneur, they're trying to make something work better, cheaper, faster, different. And they're trying to make the world, you know, some part of the world work better. And that part is really exciting to me and meaningful. And so when we talk about helping people quit their jobs and become entrepreneurs, to me that's about two things. It's empowering those people and hopefully giving them a gift that allows them to go, you know, have a more meaningful life and go do what they really want to go do. And then also, I think that has a really great impact on the world.
So at what point you realize that doing it as an angel investor, doing it individually, does not have as much impact as, hey, if you form Capital Factory, try to get more mentors, more investors together and try to build an ecosystem? How did that thought and that process come along?
You know, there's always two ways. There's like the rational, in hindsight, here's a good explanation for it, and then there's like a little bit of like what really happened, which is probably more emotional. And so like the rational like explanation is, okay, well, as an individual angel investor, I'm only so good, but my value as an investor is really what else do I bring besides the money? And because I didn't have that much money, every startup I invested in needed more money than just the money I was giving them. Same reason we both invest in companies together, right? They'll go for wildcatters, and then you're going to invest in them too. Because neither of us are giving them all the money that they need. And that's early stage investing. It's different than being a VC. And so, in the other ways you can help them is by helping them with people, helping them build their team and recruit people, and introductions to customers and things like that that really make a difference. And so I realized that for me to be a great investor, I need to be able to add more value. And by really Capital Factory is a way that I could hopefully be the most desirable investor, that everybody would want me to be in their deal, because more than just giving them money, they were going to get all these other things. And that's a good rational explanation.
And the other?
But actually, honestly, it's just because it was the most fun thing we could go do. Like, it was 2008, and Y Combinator had launched maybe, like, I think technically it started 2 years before, but you hadn't heard, you just heard about them a year before, because, for a while they had their class launch. And so we're just hearing about Y Combinator, and Techstars had just launched, and it just sounded so interesting and so fun. Like, again, like, those are the people I want to go talk to, and I want to, connect with. And the first thing I did is I reached out to Y Combinator, and I tried to get them to come to Austin, and they weren't interested in it. And I reached out to Techstars, and I tried to get them to come to Austin, and they weren't interested in it. They did many years later decide to eventually come. And so then I was like, feeling a little bit like, well, how come nobody likes Austin or Texas? Like, there should be this kind of stuff going on here. And so then we just started it. But we did it, honestly, we did it because it was fun. And all the other, there were 20 initial mentors, and I think they all did it because they thought it was going to be really fun, because they thought they'd really enjoy it.
So I agree. Same thing here that we see the mentors, and by getting to work with the entrepreneurs and getting to see the spark in their eyes when they're onto something and help them push, surround themselves with the right people that can make them become successful and faster, and not having to learn from their own mistakes, but with other people guiding them through, so it helps them. So at what point does Capital Factory start to reach an inflection point, start to gain momentum, and take off? Is that built into what's the biggest success, or something that made you proud?
Sure. So we started as a 3-month accelerator program that probably looks more like what you would expect, like the traditional description of an accelerator, something like that. I would kind of broadly refer to as the Techstars model. I think they kind of like templated it the most. And we did that for 3 years. We didn't have our own physical location. We stole space from my company, from somebody else's company. We'd use this conference room. Give them, we had 5 spare offices over here. We'll sit them in those. And we did that for 3 years. And then in 2012, we had the opportunity to open up the first floor, the top floor of Capital Factory in Austin. And that really changed everything, where we went from being a program to being a place. And it's really kind of ironic, because I very much remember my freshman year, or some year in college, as the internet was coming out, saying to somebody, like, I can't imagine that 10 or 20 years from now, anybody's going to go to the office. Like, why would you? You can just work from home. Everyone's going to be able to do that. And yet, that was so far from the truth, because actually, even though almost everyone that works at Capital Factory could work anywhere and could work other places for free, people really want to be around and connect with people. And there's something real that happens there. And so opening up the space really first just showed that to me, that like, wow, place really matters. And people get inspired by space, and things happen between people in person that don't happen any other way right now. And that really just, when we went through that from something that happened 3 months a year during the summer to happening something that was happening year-round, was happening all the time. So that was a really big change. And one of the first specific memories I have of like feeling like this inflection point, like wow, like something's different, was the first startup crawl that we did. And the startup crawl is an event that we do as part of Startup Week in Austin. And it's basically like a big party at all of the startups downtown at once. And so the idea is you can kind of like go from startup to startup and see them all. And if you're too small to have your own place, or you're not downtown, we let you like have a table at Capital Factory. And so that ends up being kind of, we call it a mega stop. It's like the big, where there's a lot of companies. And in particular, I remember the night of that happening, and how it, and looking up and watching, I'm a big Twitter user, looking up at Twitter, and it was the inflection point was it went from me tweeting about Capital Factory to everybody else tweeting about Capital Factory, and it was like, whoa, like, there's people out there.
It's like, whoa, but what have I done? What have I built? Now it has a life of its own.
That was a really cool moment that I remember. And then, the things that we've done along the way that I'm most proud of, that I really feel like we've done, that was hard, that often challenged our values and made us really have to like, not easy decisions, and really think about, what's your emotional instinct versus what's maybe the right thing to go do, is that with almost no exception, we were really the first, kind of accelerator funding, early stage funding in Austin And now there's a lot of different groups doing a lot of different things in a lot of different ways. And I'm super proud that we've been able to find a way to work with and collaborate with every single one of those in many different ways, where when other people from the outside who maybe don't understand the dynamic of how our businesses work and the fact that we don't give them all the money they need, and that once we invest in them, why wouldn't we want to help them too? But they would assume that we would be like competitive or wouldn't like each other, and that we wouldn't want new people coming to the market or new other people helping. And we've been able to, I think, you know, and again, it was hard. It was not like, you can say that, but like when it comes to individual things and decisions you have to make, and even if you know that's the right answer, it still doesn't always feel good when somebody else is coming into the market. I remember when WeWork came to Austin, and I was like, oh my God, like this huge company's coming, and they have lots of money, and they're gonna open up lots of space, and like, what's that gonna mean? And it was scary. And you know, in the end now, we've got a great relationship with WeWork, and I'm super glad they're in Austin, and they're here, and they're growing, and the community's big, and they help drive it, and there's, you know, just more and more people there. But it's scary and it's hard. I think that's something I'm really proud of, is that we've been able to ways to work with all these different partners and grow the whole ecosystem and have really see abundance, not scarcity, and see everybody benefit from that.
Yes, couldn't agree more. That we want to help build a bigger entrepreneurial ecosystem. We're just scratching the surface of what we can do here in Dallas, what we can do in Austin, in Texas. Because with this day and age, that to start a business, it's as easy as it's ever been. So I want to help support, help build a bigger ecosystem.
That note, I remember when John Feld and Gabby were coming down, starting Tech Wildcatters, and we were all, and John Feld, who's I think Brad Feld's cousin or brother, Brad Feld, one of the founders of Techstars. And so Brad was super helpful to me in starting Capital Factory, and I spent a bunch of time, with them back then when they were starting Wildcatters.
Tell me about, in 2013, President Obama came to Capital Factory. How did that happen? How did you mention all that? It's a huge thing for
that was awesome. That would definitely stand out as, certainly a great memory for a long time. Yeah, in 2013, President Obama came to visit. He stayed with us for about an hour. And he was visiting Austin to recognize Austin as a model of entrepreneurship to the rest of the country. I'm sure it fit into some other agenda, not saying anything wrong about it, just, of course it must fit into some other thing they're trying to go do. And so he visited a high school, and he visited a big company, Applied Materials, and he came to Capital Factory. He was there for about an hour, and 6 of our startups got to present to the president, and pitch what they're working on, which just that was awesome. But anywhere the president goes, there's a room full of cameras following around and other stuff. So it was a huge publicity event. They shut down all of downtown, dump trucks blocking the streets, and it was everybody knew the president was coming and something was going down. And that was awesome. And I do know exactly how that happened because I went and figured out exactly how that happened. But the interesting thing about that I didn't realize at all was the halo effect of that, and how actually powerful that was and how long it would last, to the fact that we're even talking about it today, 5 years later. And it really was, because when the president comes, he blesses the place. And then every other important person that comes wants to go do what the president did. I'm serious. And that caused all these other people to come, and really helped and it also, giving a tour to the president is hard. It's a big deal. It takes weeks of preparation, and they're really detail oriented. And so once you figured that out, you're ready to give a tour to anybody, right? We are. We have a really good team, and we are ready for anybody to show up and give them a great experience, because we learned how to do it, for the president. And so that's been really awesome. That's been just a great impact that's had, for a long time, of having him come by. And then the other interesting side effect of that is it's actually also really hard on security to get the president to go anywhere. The security team spends weeks planning for him to come, and where they're going to put the snipers and all kinds of stuff like that. And so interestingly enough, the other halo effect is now that he's been there, the Secret Service has the full security briefing for how to secure our building, which means it's actually easier for someone, if some other important person's coming, we're kind of the easiest place to go, because they already have it all figured out. They've already done all the work for like how to go make it happen. So these are like little details, but actually, I'm sure that these have had an effect of why we've continued to have lots of other great, really interesting visitors come by.
You should probably invite the president.
Yeah, it's always well, no comments about every president, but in general, probably pretty good rule to let the president come. Good thing.
So let's turn it to the audience. Any questions, anything you want to learn from Josh?
Who were some of the other people that came?
Who are some other people that came? So we got the Secretary of Defense twice, the Secretary of the Army in the past couple weeks. Especially South by brings a lot of people too. So over South by, we had Melinda Gates, Mayor of London, the Prince of the Netherlands, the Prince of Norway, Stephen Wolfram, Richard Garriott, Tim O'Reilly. That was like a really awesome week or two. Yeah, it just becomes, it's just, we're kind of like a stop on the tour of Austin. And so as people come through, and part of it is also we're like ready to go do it. It's not a pain in the butt. We're not mad when somebody asks us to go do it. It's not a frustration. It's actually somebody's job. It's just to like be there to do that and help make those things happen. And then the way we think about it is that the reason it's somebody's job is because their job is to not just make sure that they have a great experience and plan that out, but then to think about, okay, which one of our startups would benefit from getting in front of this person? So Tim Cook the CEO of Apple was there in September. And so we had all the companies that had stuff in the App Store go present to him. Because if he turns to somebody and is like, this thing's cool, like suddenly you're featured in the App Store, and like that's game changing, right? And then Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, was there a month later. And we had a very different set of companies that had opportunities where they thought they could do business with Microsoft, or they could get featured in one of their stores, or they could can integrate with Cortana or something like that. And real things come out of those things. And so that's kind of how we're always looking at it. And that's that person's job, is not just to make sure to plan this experience, but then to figure out, like, how do we plug people into this that helps them move their needle forward?
Hi, I'm Lakshmi. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm getting ready to start my company. So my question is, what is the first thing that an entrepreneur should do when they want to start their company? Rather, if you can tell us the first steps that they have to absolutely do.
Sure. Every business is really different, and so I try to give you some general advice, but you have to really tailor all this to your specific situation. I think it all starts with having the right team, the right people, and I think a very common mistake that entrepreneurs make is feeling like they can't get the best people in the world, and you should try to get the best people in the world. And if what you're trying to do is really interesting, and they really are the best people in the world for it, then they're probably actually going to want to do it. And they might make other sacrifices and other things to do that. So I would first start by thinking, who are the best people in the world for me to do this with, and how do I go find them and talk to them and get people involved? And then the second thing would be to obsess about the problem. Because a lot of entrepreneurs start off getting really obsessed about their solution. They get really excited about the idea of what they came up with. And you don't want to be married to the idea, you want to be married to the problem. And it's a hard mental thing to get over for a lot of people. And certainly it's hard for me, but I think that's something you have to really think about is what's the problem, and make sure I'm always honing in on the problem, not trying to make the problem fit my answer.
Hi, I have a quick question about your Dallas branch that you're planning to open in about a month. Could you tell us how much involvement you'll be participating in it? How often will you be there? Will you be visiting the branch every month? Meet people there working together? What's your plan?
For me personally?
Yes.
We've been working on this for a long time. It takes a long time to make this happen. We started on this about a year ago. For the past probably 9 months, I've been here almost probably every other week. There's a service started in Dallas called Rise, which is like a little plane commuter service, which I don't know if I could do it without that. We use the long lanes a lot too. So I'm pretty much here like every other week. But we've got about 50 people on our team, including 3 who we've now hired full-time here in Dallas. I know Catherine and Sarah are here in the room. And so we'll have 5 or 6 people based in Dallas that are here every day. And then there'll be people from our team, multiple people coming up every week. We've also got, if they're still here, Nick and Kelsey, Kelsey's back there. And so Kelsey's one of our venture associates. Nick does our investor relations. They've been up here all week for Startup Week, but they're up here all the time. Kelsey's partly responsible for the Dallas market, so she's up here meeting with companies. And then there's basically, we kind of like split it up between people on our team. So it's like, okay, there's 4 managers. If each of you comes once a month, then each of you is here once a week. One of you is all here, right? So basically, kind of like spreading out coverage to make sure there's people going back and forth. But our fundamental thesis behind this whole expansion is that it doesn't matter what city you're in. It's just like one big city. And because you can go to any of the cities for the day or really easily overnight, and it's easy, that if you're in Austin, you should be coming up to Dallas to meet with big companies and to pitch to the investors up here. And if you're in Dallas, you should be going down to Austin to pitch angel investors and to find maybe some mentors or other people that might not be available up here. And I think that works across the state. And so we're living that. We also, once a month, we charter a bus and we fill it up with people in Austin. And we rotate every month between Austin, Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. But it's awesome. And we roll into town with 50 entrepreneurs and investors and mentors, and we just have this awesome day of connecting people together.
Hello, my name is Harsh Gosar. I'm a student and wanting to be an entrepreneur at UGD. My question is, there are, especially in Texas, there are a lot of people who are international in the sense they're here on their visas or whatever, student visa, work visa, and a lot of them aspire to be entrepreneurs, but I'm pretty sure you're aware about the roadblocks they keep hitting all the time when it comes to how friendly immigration policies have been when it comes to being an entrepreneur. I mean, international entrepreneur rule just got stuck through for a long time, but what are your views on that, about the policies that have been brought up, or I just want to know more about your views there.
Sure, so Capital Factory is a nonpartisan organization. We don't support any individual candidates or people running for office. And in general, we try to stay out of political issues, but there's 3 places we've taken a public stance. One is on patent reform, the second is on immigration reform, and the third was on the Texas bathroom bill. So it is an issue that we care a lot about and are pretty vocal about, and that is, in general, we believe that this country was founded on immigrants, and that immigrants are inherently extremely entrepreneurial, and that if you look at most of the most successful startup companies and technology companies and really successful companies, it's like 50% of them were started by immigrants or something like that. I mean, what could be more entrepreneurial than moving to some other country when you have nothing to go, try to start a new life? That's about as entrepreneurial as it gets. And so there's even I believe a massive selection bias of the kinds of people that are immigrants are probably actually super likely to be entrepreneurs, and they're super motivated to go make stuff happen and create a life for themselves. And I'm getting goosebumps talking about this. To me, that's just logical. That's just why would you not let all these people come here that are going to come contribute to our community and make it bigger and better? So that's my general view. Is I think we need to find ways to be really open to that, and particularly people that are coming here to start businesses that are highly educated, that are going to be a great value to our community. We need more people like that.
Hello. Great chat. Just a question from an entrepreneur perspective. When do you, as an entrepreneur, look for investment? In your opinion, what should be the threshold? Is there a revenue threshold that you get $200,000 by your own investment first, and then you can look for seed money or invested money?
Yes, so kind of to the other question of how do you what's the first thing to get started? Every business is really different, and every business has different capital requirements, needs different kinds of money at different times. So I can give you the perfect answer, but the perfect answer probably doesn't apply to anybody. But the perfect answer is you raise money when you don't need it. And what that means is, and at some level, and the other way to think about it is meaning that you've de-risked the business and you've kind of figured it out, and so you have options, and that's actually the best time to raise money. That's when you're going to get the best valuation and the best terms, and that's the strongest position to be in as you're raising money. The other part of it is to ideally raise money to scale your business, not to figure out what your business is. And that kind of is the same thing I was just saying, but a different way of saying it. So the best way to raise money is because I figured this thing out and I'm fine, but I would grow a lot faster if I had more money to put into it. And so again, that's not going to work for every business. Some businesses take a lot of money to get them started or to figure out or take R&D or other things like that. But a lot of businesses actually don't. And most businesses take much less money than you think they do. And especially software businesses and SaaS businesses, if you have the right team, you should be able to get to product market fit and get something built with a very small amount of money. And then get to the point where like, okay, what we're actually raising money to go do is to sell this, not to build it.
Good afternoon. My name is Richard Fincher. I'm the founder of Ion Instruments, which is a hardware company out of place here in Louisville. But as an angel, what do you expect in return from the companies that you fund? And how much funding are you willing to give someone on the volunteers?
So I've been an angel. Now I'm more of a professional investor where I have a fund and I invest, but we invest like an angel. So I'm just not qualified, but so it's probably a little bit different being a professional investor. I think most angels, from a financial return perspective, it's rolling the dice. Like it's very hard for them to know what to expect. The general rule of thumb with venture style investing, which would be different than maybe investing in a restaurant or another type of small business, which might be a great investment, which isn't the kind of thing we're talking about. But when you're talking about venture investing, angel investors, companies expected to raise venture capital, you're looking for a 10x return on your capital. It doesn't mean you have to know you're going to get a 10x return, but you have to see the possibility of a 10x return. And that's just the basic portfolio economics of realizing that actually most of these things aren't going to work. So if one of them doesn't do a 10x return, the whole thing doesn't work. And we've really seen that. Like, in our first 15 companies that we did in the first 3 years, there was one company, Sparefoot, that really stood out above all the rest. And there's like 13 of them became nothing, like failed. 2 of them didn't become nothing, but won't produce any interesting returns, especially relative to what Sparefoot will do. So it's like they aren't going to pay for all the other ones that didn't work. Maybe they pay for themselves. But Sparefoot paid for all of them many times over. And that's the way this business works. Is you have to have a portfolio approach. They have to be able to achieve outsized returns. And then I'll tell you the other thing I expect is I expect the entrepreneur to be transparent and communicate. It's not a blind investment. I expect them to keep me informed and communicate about what's going on. And if something fails, I expect them to give me the opportunity to invest in the next thing that they go do. And that's the main thing I ask of them, which sometimes is counterintuitive. Sometimes they think we would never want to invest in it, but I'm like, I just paid for you to learn all these lessons. Yeah, I want to invest in it. And you get some great next idea, don't leave me out of it. I expect you to put me in that deal. And so that's on the tail of it.
Last question.
Hey, so I have a startup in Houston, which obviously is very oil and gas and medical centric, which are 2 industries I know desire to be a part of. And the startup economy over there is definitely less developed. And what is there is based around those 2 industries. How would you recommend that I get more plugged into the Dallas and Austin tech scene specifically, in terms of startup land, kind of distance myself a little bit from oil and gas and medical?
Sure. So are you a member of Station? No. Do you know what Station is? Yeah. Okay. So one thing is I would definitely join Station Houston. Station Houston is a great community in Houston that is not focused on oil and gas or health. They have all kinds of different startups there, and there is a lot of great stuff happening in Houston. I think it is a smaller market, but I think there's lots of great stuff going on there, and there are people that will invest in those companies and people that can help. Again, our Texas Startup Manifesto, our Texas strategy is that it doesn't matter what city you're in. And so I don't think you have to move to Dallas or move to Austin, but you should leverage them, and you should use them as an asset that you have in Houston. And so you should be spending time there, and you should be going up to those places and developing networks and plugging into places like The Deck or Wildcatters and plugging into Capital Factory and kind of extending your network to take advantage of all of that.